Welcome to the 15th episode of the Reframe podcast. In this episode, our guest Abbas Masud discusses his life experiences as a veteran and senior banker, an avid traveler, and a creative soul. Our takeaway from today's discussion is to never stop discovering yourself and never constrain your potentials. If you get value out of the podcast, please leave a comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you're listening to this, and share it with your friends, whether in casual conversation or through social media. Let's get into the 15th episode of the Reframe podcast with Abbas Masud. This episode is brought to you by Dubai Copyright Office. Whether you're an established business, a startup, or even a social media influencer, you need to protect your intellectual property. Dubai Copyright Office is one of the leading service providers in the MENA region in the field of intellectual property. They provide comprehensive advisory services related to intellectual property strategies for protecting business assets as well as getting additional financial benefits out of it. The company provides turnkey solutions from the collection of primary documents to the delivery of the certificate. Start protecting your most important asset today. Go to www.dubaicopyright.ae and use promo code REFRAME2020 to get 5% discount and free consultation. www.dubaicopyright.ae, promo code REFRAME2020. So welcome back to another episode, and today we are going to discuss the more practical part of success and how the whole career translates into personal success as well. So we have with us Mr. Abbas Masud. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And let's dive right into it, starting from where the journey began. And I understand, we will talk about a lot more things that you are involved into. But let's start off of how the whole journey began.
Okay, so literally where the whole journey began was in Lady Dufferin Hospital in Karachi.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Really? That's interesting. So my father was in the Foreign Service of Pakistan. Mashallah stood first in the 1952 batch. So lot to,
So the success was trickled down from there.
Well, no, this apple didn't fall that close to the tree, but yes. So I think I was 6 months old when we went to Canada, Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my father's first posting. So he went earlier and we joined him. And after 3 years, came back to Karachi and then went to Sri Lanka, Colombo, Ceylon at that time. I have some memories of Sri Lanka, of course not of Canada. The cleanest place I've ever seen, Colombo. And so from there back to Karachi around 62. Then Washington, 3 years. And then 3 interesting years in Tehran, Iran.
Uh-huh. Every 3 years you were shuffling because
Correct.
of your father's job.
67 to 69. And then my father was posted to Delhi, to the High Commission there. But I didn't join him there. I was studying in Habib School in Karachi at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But interesting times because the Indo-Pak War for Bangladesh took place around that time, and he went to Calcutta to take over a consulate there and was sort of under some restrictions for 4 months, so we didn't know where he was. So, and I was in Habib at that time. After coming back from there, he was rewarded with a posting to San Francisco because there was not much to do, but he declined, and so he was sent to the mission to the UN in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So joined him there. Did my high school from New York.
From New York, okay.
And then I maybe should have stayed on there to pursue my higher studies. Didn't. Came back to Karachi. Father, in the meantime, was posted to Jordan. Joined Karachi University. Did my honors in international relations from there. And then BCCI had emerged, and it was the fashion.
And that's where the professional
career started. So I joined the fourth batch of BCCI.
So from international relations into banking.
Yeah.
How does it all connect?
I think our society in that respect, or our parents have, we've improved. In my time, whatever came up,
okay.
I mean,
you would learn into the skill basically.
Yeah, and there were sort of one wanted to get married at a certain age. Okay, this came up, I did well in the interview. So one should pursue one's passion and interest, but at that time a lot of people didn't. So I'm not saying banking was uninteresting. It was a very good career at that time, still is to some extent. But if I was to live my life again, maybe I would have been in the media or maybe the foreign service.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyway, so BCCI in 1978 joined them. I was part of the fourth batch. So these are batches of 18-20 people are selected every year. And it's a very tough interview process.
Yeah, they were very famous for their hiring process.
Yes, it wasn't very easy.
Extremely rigorous. Yeah,
it was a privilege to be part of that sort of an elite group. At that time, I don't remember what the pay was, but one of the perks was that we were given 2 suits. So everyone who joined couldn't afford a suit, so they insured. They didn't ask any questions. They said, "Okay, go to so and so," and so very interesting times. My first posting was in BCCI Karachi, 8-10 months, and then Kuwait. The company's name was Kuwait International Finance Company. It was an affiliate of BCCI, 48% owned by the bank. I was in the investment banking part.
Right.
So it was more on investment. So trading in local bonds, etc., equity, futures, local stock market.
Right.
And then from there to Luxembourg, BCCI Luxembourg. One of the head offices of BCCI was in Luxembourg. So the main head office was in London. But one of the subsidiaries was based out of Cayman Islands and the other from Luxembourg. So it was an important posting in that respect. So I was there from 85 to 90. Right. Then got posted to BCCI in Amsterdam. And that's where the bank collapsed, was closed down, is globally.
Yeah.
Very interesting anecdote is that you can imagine my reaction. Had no clue as to what was happening in the background, of course. I was in the dealing room at that time on the Reuters monitor, placing some funds. And I see a ticker going that BCCI closed down in worldwide, in a global action. Just imagine an employee reading
the surprise
about the closure of his employers.
Wow.
And in a couple of hours, the central bank was there and they took over the keys, etc.
Must be overwhelming.
It was. I assisted them. I was one or two people who was retained to assist them in closing the books, etc. At that time, my father retired from the Foreign Office at the age of superannuation. He was posted in Germany at that time. And although a very desi person by heart, I was so used to traveling that I thought that, look, if I go to Pakistan now, it won't be that easy to, come out again. So why not stay on and try to get Dutch nationality? So I stayed on and applied to 167 institutions,
Ooh.
companies. I wasn't even called for a single interview. The stigma of
That was, yes, that with the BCCI closure.
At that time. So then a restaurant was being sold, a small restaurant, a Pakistani Indian restaurant. So I bought that, and in 1993 expanded it.
Oh.
And ran it for about 5-6 years completely on my own. And then when things were forgotten about BCCI to an extent, I started applying again, and I was taken in by ABN AMRO Bank, and so joined them in 1999.
Okay.
And sold the restaurant around, I think 2001. From 1999 to 2001, I had given it on a partnership. If I could I was just explaining how I feel that those 6 years taught me the most. If I was to look back and see which period of my life really changed me and was the most beneficial to me, I think it was the years in the restaurant.
Running your own business and
yes,
trying to understand
that,
everything on
your own. Of course,
I
worked hard and I rose in the institution that I was working for, but still it was relatively easygoing.
Yeah, because the structure is there, exactly. You have the support.
Exactly. So in a way, I thought that my life was, I would lead the life of a silver spoon fed an individual. And then when I bought into the restaurant, I really realized what life can be and how you need to do everything when you own something. So from opening the place at 9 a.m. to having it cleaned, to making all the purchases, doing all the administration, because it's a small restaurant. I also worked in the front.
You are everybody basically.
And closed it by about 12:31, 7 days a week.
You don't get any breaks when you're running your own company.
No. So really, for the first time in my life, I thought I stood on my own 2 feet.
And the pride is also of another level in these situations.
Absolutely.
The sense of achievement, and that's a great thing, because a lot of people think this entrepreneurship is easy. I mean, my own rules, my own company. I wake up when I want to and things like that. But actually, it's a 24/7 job.
The responsibility is such that, you're on
Tremendous.
your own, and you're fending for your family. And there's a reputation at stake also.
And the employees that you have to pay.
Exactly. So you're responsible for the employees also.
So you had a family at that point in time?
Yes. So my firstborn was 85, and then I had a pair of twins in 92. All girls, mashallah. So at the time of the restaurant, my daughters were there, and my family supported me, of course.
So did you get the nationality at the end of the day?
Yeah, eventually in 2001, I think I got the nationality. Absolutely. And then I stayed on till 2007 with ABN AMRO in Amsterdam. I was part of, in fact, when I joined, they had started what they called Global Transaction Services. They had just started it, and they modeled it after the very successful Citibank GTS model. They had sold a bank, investment company by the name of Bank Mace Pearson, and from those funds, they established this department. So I was part of the rollout team, and the rollout team went to different countries to implement the GTS organization. So the sales, services, solution delivery, customer service pertaining to GTS. And GTS, the main products under GTS were trade and payments and clearing and custody.
Right.
So went to a number of countries with the team, Russia, Poland, Czech Republic, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Austria, then in Africa, Morocco, South Africa.
I'm beginning to think that your banking was a side hustle. Huh? You were actually a traveler.
Yeah, I tell people that what I'm really proud of is not necessarily my education or the degree I took, or even eventually what I rose up to become in the bank, but what I learned from my travels.
I'm sure.
And I did travel a lot. So with my father every 3 years. So I lived properly in 15 countries.
Wow.
That's a lot. I mean,
that is a lot.
Proper living. And then I visited another 33, 34.
Wow.
So, and visited not just for a day or so, but more. So, yeah, really is the biggest teacher, the biggest mentor traveling. Learned a lot in terms of tolerance, in broadening the mind, in broadening the horizon, empathy, trying to place yourself in the other person's shoes. Because when you come across diversity, then you realize that you're not alone in the world. There's so many different people,
different perspectives,
and absolutely different perspectives. That's it. And you start to appreciate them better.
Right.
So in that respect, I'm very secular.
So if I were to ask you, what out of the 33 countries that you visited, if you were given a choice,
all lived in. Yeah.
If you were given a choice today, which country would you want to settle in?
The country I'm in now. Absolutely.
So UAE in Dubai tops all 33 of them?
And that's not really, I'm not saying it because I'm the UAE, and that's the absolute truth. And when I tell people that, when I tell the younger people that, and I say, don't just believe me because I'm saying it, believe me because I've been across, I've really traveled.
I think that's a big shout out to Sheikh Mohammed and the UAE government and what they've done with this place.
Absolutely.
But what is that specific thing or that special thing about UAE that you?
I used to travel to Dubai, to UAE from the Netherlands. Sometimes on trips to ABN AMRO in Dubai, but sometimes on the way to Pakistan I used to stop over. And when I used to come back, and I used to tell my family that eventually I would like to settle here. And I'll come to why I said it and why I like it so much. But before that, how that happened is also very interesting. That I was coming back from Karachi to the Netherlands, and I had taken the Malaysian Airways, if I'm not mistaken. And on the flight, I happened to see the, at that time, head of international here in Dubai for UBL. I'd met him once before, very casually. So I said, look, I'm with, by that time I was with RBS. So ABN AMRO had been taken over by RBS by that time. And I was in Singapore. So from 2007, 2008, I was in Singapore. At that time, I met him. And he said, well, looks interesting. We may have a vacancy, the appropriate vacancy. Why don't you send your CV? Interviewed me for about 20 minutes. So his name is Mr. Wajad Hussain. He eventually became the president of UBL. He still says, Abbas is the only person I interviewed at 35,000 feet. So that was my entry into UAE. But why I like the place is, I mean, it has everything that a person really is looking for. I think the foremost, security. What does one look for oneself and the family?
Yeah.
Security. And I never felt as secure as I did here, even on my trips, and now as I felt anywhere, even in Europe. Yeah. Then religion did play a part, I think. The azan, when I used to hear it, it's not Pakistan, but the the proximity to key countries.
Right.
Right in the center. Proximity to my own country, of my country of origin. So 2 hours away, 28 flights a day. The best of the East and the West.
Yeah, that is for sure. I think that's the biggest reason that a lot of people like it from
exactly
all areres.
So for a person like me who's lived abroad a lot,
right?
But Dil hai Pakistani or Dil is very desi. Absolutely, this is just a no-brainer.
True.
And the prospects, economy, the economy continues to grow. Yes, there have been times when
I think that's been everywhere.
Everywhere. So, and never regretted the decision of coming here.
So, did you come out of that banker phase eventually, and did you discover what you would, like you said, you would want to be somebody else if given another chance of life?
Yeah, so I did covered various areas in BCCI and in ABN AMRO. When I came here, I was made the head of operations for UBL International. So UBL here is the international office.
International headquarters of UBL, yes.
Is managed out of Dubai. So initially I was given operations, then I was given the portfolio of IT as well, and then corporate communications and marketing and credit administration. So the position wasn't ever called that, but effectively I was the CEO of UBL International. And I reached I don't say it very overtly, and the reasons for that are, some people may find that absurd, but I retired from the bank in 2015.
That's fairly recent.
So 4 years ago. And initially, in a certain segment of society, I never divulged as to why I left the bank, because then my age would have been, apparent. I'm a late bloomer.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing, but I am a late bloomer. I think the age where I really started, blossoming and doing things effectively and really prospering was from the age of, I think, 48, 49. Normally people peak between maybe 30 and 40. So I thought when I retired, I was primed to do even more within the bank or in the corporate sector. Yes, initially, I was averse. I thought banking was maybe not my cup of tea. But then, after learning the ropes and after, the stint in UBL, which was my most rewarding stint, I thought when the time came that, oh my goodness,
You're just getting started.
I was fighting I wasn't, it was difficult to accept it in the beginning that I was really retiring. So I would, if people would ask why have you left, I would say, I wanted to, seek other opportunities rather than just say that I retired. Anyway, so after that, we were constructing a house, so I spent some time there.
That's here.
In Dubai.
In Dubai, okay.
Bought a piece of land. The persuasion, I must admit, of my wife, which was the right decision, and then built our own house. It was an experience, not an easy thing to do,
true.
Especially if you stand there in the summer heat for 6 hours, 7 hours a day. But again,
I've heard that building a house as a couple sort of brings the marriage. It's the truest test of your marriage.
So you can understand that we've survived it, still intact. So yes, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It does. But
tests the relationship to the limit.
Yeah, because there's just so much stress. But thank God we came out of it in reasonable colors.
So I want to know. I want to segue into when you joined ABN AMRO here. UBL here. When you moved to UAE.
Yeah.
At that point in time, so your daughters were studying when they moved here. Before that, of course, they were with you.
Yeah. So my all my daughters studied in the Netherlands.
Netherlands, okay.
In international schools there. Then when I'm just trying to think now, in Amsterdam, I think. So my daughter then went to University of Surrey to do her economics. She graduated in economics from there.
They had already graduated by the time you moved here.
And yeah, correct.
How was the experience for them? Having grown up in a completely different environment, different culture.
And then coming to Dubai? Yeah, so they've hardly lived in Pakistan. They've only visited Pakistan. So, and you're right, they grew up in Europe, but they adjusted to Dubai very, very well. Yeah, very, very well. They love it.
Again, because of multicultural environment and
yes, and the comforts. I guess.
Yeah.
So
Dubai spoils you.
Yeah, even if you're not really, you miss some of the things of the West, some of your interest. But on the other hand, if the comforts are, so I mean.
The very idea that the laundry boy comes to the house to pick up the laundry and deliver it just wins the case for me.
Absolutely. I tell people, the younger people, to ideally, if it's possible, not to start their career here.
Right.
But to end it or come in later in life, in the 40s.
But then you come through the problems of how to be able to fund yourself after you've retired, how to stay on, because yes, there is an element of not having the opportunity of being a citizen of this country. You need to be employed at all times. So those are challenges, but you're right. I mean, especially in later part of the career, you tend to enjoy the comforts more, and you actually yearn for them.
Exactly. So I don't mean necessarily post-retirement,
right?
But let's say, around after 40, because before that it can really spoil you. So if the UAE is your first posting or your first station outside Pakistan or wherever you come from, it can really spoil you, because
it can.
Anything after that is a come down. In terms of comfort.
Before we move on, I just want to take a minute, especially for the people listening here. We have a meeting going on in the room, next room, so you might be hearing a lot of laughter and crosstalk, but unfortunately can't do anything about it. All right. So continuing, something very important to drive out of your experiences in terms of you getting into banking quite by accident, but then growing very successfully into it and not letting go of what you really wanted out to do in your life. So what are some other things that you are engaged in?
Right. So I need to correct myself a little bit in terms of thinking that it was not my, it wasn't the right profession. Yes, maybe initially I thought it, but I made the most of it. Eventually, I retired as a EVP, Executive Vice President, so I did climb the ladder.
Yes, you were successful, but then at the same time, you wanted to, you did not want to let go of your passions.
Absolutely.
Let's put it that way.
So I'm more of a creative person. So, and my creativity, when I was 7 years old, I made my first portrait, sketched, and Pakistani actress at the time, Zeba, I think. And then I started drawing family members, etc. So my main forte in that kind of art is pencil and charcoal sketching of faces and figures, etc. I do some painting, some oil painting, but not that much. I love to write, so when I was posted, my father was posted to Jordan, I started a newsletter for the Pakistani community. So we used to cyclostyle it at that time.
Oh, the old way of...
Yeah. So got fond of journalism and writing at an early stage, and so have continued to love writing, and so. Then my maternal grandfather, Sayyid Ali Raza, was a poet of some repute. So after skipping a generation, it's come to me. I started saying poetry pretty late in life, about 15 years ago. So mainly Urdu poetry, some English poetry as well. So I write poetry.
Excellent. We'd love to read it, or if you're writing a book on it, that'll be great.
I need to collect it, collate it. Apparently, the greatest poet of the Urdu language, Ghalib, he has a huge repertoire of poetry, but a lot of it has been lost because he used to say poetry or write poetry for his beloveds, which were many, and used to just give it away.
Yes,
and they were never compiled. Yeah. So I'm not claiming that I have written a lot for my beloveds, because even though I can't admit it. No, it's just a joke. But a lot of my poetry has been lost because I say it and I haven't.
But now it's so easy. I mean, you can just record it on your phone, voice note.
Yeah. I know this is being conducted in English, but qata that I said for people who don't necessarily understand my poetry.
No, we have a lot of Urdu listeners.
Is that दिल को ज़बां देता हूँ अशार में, दिल को ज़बां देता हूँ अशार में, क्या कुछ नहीं कहता हूँ अशार में, लोग करते रहें तशरी अपनी अपनी, उस तक तो पहुँच जाता हूँ अशार में.
क्या बात पहुँचा दी आपने.
So I dabble in a lot of creative pursuits. A creative person needs an audience, needs validation, needs endorsement. Every human does.
Right.
I mean,
of course,
it's not only for creative people, but especially creative people. So I think maybe I have that urge, and that's why I follow these creative pursuits. There are various avenues that you express yourself, and that's.
So we talk a lot about these things, aspirations and motivations for the younger generation in this podcast, and I think it's the perfect time to segue into that, irrespective of what people are pursuing, what they're doing in their professional life. I think you would agree also that it is very important for people to realize their true passion and not give up on it.
Absolutely.
So if I ask you, what are your thoughts on people being master of one skill or being a jack of multiple skills? Which one would you choose and which one would you recommend?
A good question. I think there's no easy answer to that. I think if you're want to climb this corporate ladder in one discipline, then you should be a master of your own field, rather than being distracted by other things. Because then, for example, if you're an investment banker, you're really good at it.
Yeah.
I think that's where your calling is, that you should pursue it all your life. But it doesn't suit everyone, I guess.
Exactly. What if that's not your calling, but that's your profession?
Yeah.
Change your profession.
So that's the ideal thing, but not everybody gets that opportunity.
And there's no harm in changing your trajectory if you feel after a few years that this is your not.
No, it does require a leap of faith.
Yes, that's true. And not everyone can have that. Some just slog
circumstances
through.
Also play a major role.
Yeah, exactly. Economic circumstances,
family situation.
But ideally, you should pursue your passion in your career as well as your personal life, both.
How did managing your peers or your staff, people working with you, how did the artistic part of you help you in managing people? Because you were in a position of person. Yeah. So and you say that art and the artistic nature comes through. So did it help you in understanding people, in connecting with them on that level, even in a place as dry and boring as a bank or banking?
Thank you for asking that. Nobody's asked me that, but I think it's very, very relevant. No, it really is. I think, and it should be understood by people that rather than it being a detriment, it can add value, and in my case, it did. I think if I didn't have those attributes, I think my man management would have been impeded or not that good. In UBL, in international, I was overseeing the largest group of people, maybe because of the nature of what I was doing. So operations already has the largest number of people. That's the nature of the work. But then I had 300-400 people that were reporting indirectly into me. So, and I was responsible for them, right? It's just not that I was just judging them on their work. But at the end of the day, I was responsible for them and their families.
Of course, yeah.
So my boss used to tell me that people who work closely to you always remember the children's name. And when he said always remember the children's name, he didn't mean that ratify them.
Yeah.
He meant be so close to them that you get to know
what's
that
going
children
on in
also.
their life.
Exactly. So I think that aspect, those soft skills that one, I mean, and we'll discuss soft skills because that's what I'm pursuing now.
Yes.
In my
I want to come to that in a bit.
Avatar, but I think I had those soft skills. So the ability to put yourself in another person's shoes, being compassionate, being warm, being considerate, empathy.
Right.
If you were to ask me, and I guess you would sometime, if I wouldn't bring it this up myself, I've seen your podcasts and they're great, by the way.
Thank you very much.
And so sometimes you, in a couple of podcasts, you've asked what is the value that you consider the most important. So the various values, but empathy. And what is empathy? Putting yourself in the other person. I've said this about a couple of times, maybe more, but I think it's vital. My father used to repeat this definition of good manners, and I would like to mention it, that people confuse good manners with etiquette. They're two different things. So good manners is not necessarily which hand you use the knife and fork with. So that's etiquette. Rather, it's an intrinsic appreciation of how the other person feels. If you have that, you have good manners. Good manners is basically
it's
empathy.
how the other person, how you make the other person feel.
Or feel or judge how the other person is feeling, right?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, if you don't have that ability, and if you just bombard them by what you want.
I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off. But from what I've understood of what you're saying is that there are certain people who see things in black, a shade of gray, and white. But because of empathy and your nature, and because you like to see things in a different way, you see shades.
Absolutely.
And you see, you can understand, and you can feel the other person, and you can get. And if people working under you, your employee, anybody, your staff, people working under you, your peers, they understand that he will understand if we have this shortcoming. A person. I feel that you covered a lot of people. You gave them the benefit of the doubt, and they were loyal to you, and they give you more than they would give anybody else.
Absolutely. Maya Angelou, the famous American poet who died a few years back, famously said, and I'm not quoting her verbatim, but something to the effect, that what people remember you with is not what you said to them or what you did for them, but how you made them feel. So again, coming back to that, how you make an individual feel. And that really helps not only me, it would help anyone. So to the younger generation, I would urge that be strict, be tough on the goals, on your SMART objectives that you set out, but be compassionate too.
Yeah,
it has to be a mix, otherwise it doesn't work.
And don't be too quick to judge.
Being judgmental is
don't be too quick to judge, because that's what happens, especially in this generation. they judge everything so quickly. There's just,
Another thing, why is this new generation so impatient?
Yeah.
And I think it shows everywhere in their careers, education.
But I think, the phone or social media is of huge benefit. But on the other hand, what it has done is curtailed the social skills. The social skills which you get by talking to people, by physically interacting. A lot of that has lessened.
Right.
And because of that, what you're saying, people have become impatient because you don't know how to deal with people anymore.
Yeah.
Families sit together.
In real life, you can't scroll up and...
Exactly. Very, very well put. Yeah, absolutely. Families sit and look at their phones and communicate. I mean, send messages to each other on the phone rather than... So the verbal skills have also, come down. So the impatience is also because of that, because...
See, but by the way, I don't feel the social media to be evil at all.
No, it's not an evil.
So it's just that I think it's being misused right now, or maybe
it's a double-edged sword. Overall, it's of huge benefit.
Yeah,
but it's nothing. Everything should be done in moderation. I myself am totally addicted to my phone. When I get up for the loo in the night, I have to look at my phone. So most of us, I think.
I think the social media has also overwhelmed us. Yeah. I can't imagine. I was talking to my son the other day, and I told him that I got my phone when I started working. Before that, it was like I didn't need it. And and he was like, "How did you communicate? How did you tell Nani where you were at every waking moment of your?" Because I didn't need the feel to tell my mother what
also
I was.
The landscape was much different at that time.
Yeah.
The situation was completely different. Social media was not there in the beginning.
Well, the landscape changed because of the social media as well.
And now the requirements are changed. So, like I said, I mean, I personally don't believe it to be an evil. I do believe that it needs to be, like you said, consumed in moderation and towards the right direction. If you use it properly, I think there's nothing less than tremendous benefit that you can drive out of it.
Overall, yes, absolutely.
So, coming back to the part about the younger generation, my belief, continuing from where we left off, is I believe in today's day and age, I think everybody needs to have a certain set of skills, irrespective of your career, your profession, or wherever you are. So even if you talk about a particular career, that particular trajectory, even in that case, today, who is an entrepreneur? He's a marketeer. He's a sales guy.
Absolutely.
He's managing finances.
Yeah.
He's managing PR. He's managing...
You need to know all these disciplines.
You need to learn all of those. Maybe not to the extent of an expert, but of course you need to know about it. I see this. You look at any social media platform, the people who are creating content, they're filmmakers themselves. They're script writers themselves. They're actors. They're directors. Yeah. They know lighting. They know camera work. They know editing. They know publishing. They know social media management. So those are a lot of skills. If you divide that into specializations, one YouTube creator would have to hire 15 people behind him. Right? And I think that applies a lot even during the education phases.
True.
Because, yes, with the times that are changing, a lot of jobs will be taken over, as they say, by the robots. Right? But automation, basically. Artificial intelligence. But I sincerely believe that there is one area where no amount of artificial intelligence can come and take over from human beings, and that is emotions.
Absolutely.
So surgery can be done around the world through robots, micro robots. Your banking operations are already automated, but then can somebody take away? Can a robot become Tom Cruise?
There's an author by the name of Noah Harari, Harari, I think. he's written 2 books that I know of. One is Sapiens, and the other is Homo Deus. Extremely interesting books. I would recommend people go through them. And he talks about, and he's really done a lot of research. So he tells you the history from the creation of energy 14.5 billion years ago to the Big Bang,
right,
about 7-8 billion years ago, to the creation of energy 4.5 billion years ago, to creation of organisms about 2.5 billion years ago, and then 700 million years ago to the first Homo humans, and then to the sapiens, so what we are, about 700,000 years ago. And then he predicts. So this is an evolution from energy to atoms to molecules to organisms to animals to humans.
Right.
And among humans there were the Neanderthals and others.
Yes.
And then us. Sapiens means the wise.
Yeah.
So we are the wise humans. And then he predicts that we ourselves will become extinct eventually. He hasn't predicted when, and will be taken over by machines, right?
Right.
So what, as you mentioned, emotional intelligence, what separates us from machines and will in the long term is the emotional intelligence or empathy.
True.
Once machines get that, then
it's game over for us.
Absolutely game over. And that's what he's written in Homo Deus, where he's predicted that. So yeah, interesting scenario. So yes, generation should be educated according to the times.
Exactly. Yes. There was an argument that I was discussion rather that I was having with a friend of mine about the fact that younger generation does not want to write on paper.
Yeah.
And the argument was he was of the opinion, and was that maybe in the future you don't need to do that. You have voice dictation today. It's much easier and faster to type on a phone or on a tablet than write on a paper. You and I, maybe our age, we feel comfortable in writing on paper because that's how we grew up. But this generation is more adapt to writing on a screen. Is there anything wrong in it? Maybe not. Probably not.
Yeah. Although there's an argument that motor skills develop when you write. So
but then there is another argument that even playing games build a lot of good motor skills and processing.
The jury is out on that.
Exactly. So it's not like a decision. It's just a discussion.
Of course.
But then different perspectives are there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Now moving on to this 40, 45 or almost 50 years of experience, career, your personal.
Yeah, when did I start? 78. So,
40 plus years.
My goodness.
40 plus years of experience. Yeah. What's the melting pot? Where is this now coming in, funneling out? Are you mentoring somebody? I do know that you have a training company of your own. So is that the melting pot of all of your experience? Where is it going now?
Right. So a year ago, we set up our own company by the name of Aleph, ALEPH Incorporated. And we have three main functions under it. One is knowledge management, or to be more specific, corporate training, and to be even more specific, soft skills.
Right.
And then we have media and marketing. And third is event management. Media and marketing and event management, because those are my passion, and not only mine but my daughters. All three have studied business management and marketing and economics. So, and they've worked in organizations, with that kind of background. So, but my main area of focus will be corporate training.
Okay.
So, I've trained a few banks here. A few other corporates and some banks, financial institutions in Pakistan. So yeah, if you're saying how what my years of experience has distilled into, hopefully it has distilled into this company, and I have great hopes from it, because I feel that I'm primed to really exploit my experience. Exploit is not the right word, but to tap on it, and then use my articulation skills to really convey what I've learned. So not only the hard skills, but through my travels,
life experiences,
life
lessons.
I have a lot of anecdotal references that I can give, but a lot of people may not be able to. So that's probably my advantage. It's very interesting. Soft skills, some people don't take them too seriously, but if you do research, we'll come to know that soft skills are probably more important than hard skills. Hard skills, or they used to be called essential skills, are technical skills. So
and they will be taken over by machines either way.
Exactly. So either automated.
Yeah.
But these soft skills.
No. Yeah.
That's
where the emotions are. Have you been able to pinpoint a certain gap in the industries? I mean, corporate world right now in terms of soft skills, because I'm also associated with training, and I do feel there's a huge gap the way the things have been done, specifically for soft skills.
Yeah.
Soft skills become kind of a sort of a, everybody can do soft skills. It's kind of that thing. There's no specialization. There's you can't do anything. You go into soft skills.
Actually, they are what make they are the cylinders which make you run eventually.
Exactly. Yeah.
So without soft skills, you may be very good in the technical skills. For example, trade.
But how do we coach, or how do we actually get the corporate world and the entrepreneurs and the startups understand the importance right from the get-go?
Yeah. Not an easy task.
Yeah,
but
it's not about slogans, customer is always right, and customer experience is this and that.
No. But I mean, in the introductory meetings, it needs to be explained. Look, all these skills, in order to deal with people, you're dealing with people in companies, not machines, right? Thank God till now. You need soft skills. So you may be very good in trade, in clearing, in payments, whatever your industry is. But if you are not able to work with people, with your higher ups or your lower downs, how can you be effective?
No.
In order to do that, you need these soft skills. So leadership skills, selling skills. One thing that I stress on a lot is negotiation skills. It is not an easy skill to transfer.
Right.
It's key. It's key.
True.
How you negotiate with people, how you prepare for the negotiation.
Right. Yeah.
It's a give and take. People don't realize it. It's negotiation is termed to be both a science and an art. And
it is. And there's a book, Never Split the Difference.
Yeah, exactly.
By a former CIA negotiator.
Agent, yeah.
Amazing book, amazing lessons.
It is.
And he says you should never split the difference, why and how to negotiate. And he was at one point in time, I think, primarily the world's most famous hostage negotiator.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great book.
Yeah.
The others, customer service, we may think it's very basic, but it's key. I mean, I've had this experience that if I'm not served properly in a particular shop, and it happened to me, where a particular item was, electronic item was cheaper than the other shop, I left the place and went to the more expensive shop because I was dealt with better there.
Right. Yeah, that's where actually the customer will pay more if they get value.
Absolutely.
And that value is only emotions and emotional connection.
Recognition, respect.
Yeah.
And people don't realize, a lot of customer service communication, and communication is not only verbal or written, but the body language. The body language is so key.
Yeah.
People don't write, people slouch, people will sit like this, and these things portray different things to different people.
Yeah.
So that, understanding that to practitioners of customer service is also very key. Emotional intelligence is very important. Decision making. Somebody has said that leadership is basically about decision making. All else is tenacity. So until the leader doesn't have the ability to make decisions, so there are modules on decision making, which is a very important one. The art of persuasion.
Yeah, very important. Ties in very well with negotiation skills.
Absolutely. How you influence people.
Yeah.
This gentleman by the name of Dale Carnegie wrote this book, How to Make Friends and Influence People.
Such a classic and such timeless.
Absolutely.
Such a timeless book.
Absolutely. So emotional intelligence, living now. Is key. People, and I tell that to a lot of my friends who are obsessed with milestones and very long-term milestones. And this is, I'm not saying this from what I've read, but I'm telling you this from my practical life. People miss out on the joy of life because they are only looking at the milestone. They're not living the day or the week.
Yeah.
So you have to enjoy the journey.
Yeah, you have to fall in love actually with
you
the
will
journey.
not be able to get to the milestone if you're totally obsessed and not enjoying the journey.
Yeah.
Right?
And even if you're there, then you will not. It will be meaningless.
Exactly.
When you get there.
Exactly.
It will not be the pot of gold that you had imagined.
Absolutely. So enjoy the journey. Another sort of idiom, or that's mine, and I tell my children to copyright it maybe, that consider that the Almighty gives you a $100 bill every midnight to understand the example better. For want of a better expression, $100 bill, and the validity of that bill is only 24 hours.
Right.
It's going to expire after 24 hours.
Right.
And then you get, if you live another day, you get another $100 bill. So what you do in those 24 hours with that bill, with that $100 note, is what your life is, what you make of it.
True.
If you waste it, if you don't spend it and don't invest it, you've lost
Then
that
you're
$100.
lost.
It's
Yeah.
gone forever.
Yeah. Related to this, I read a very good article related to this, converting the dollar bill into minutes.
Yeah. Well, you can say that also.
So you have 1440 minutes.
Somebody had told
in a
me
day.
that, but really I hadn't read that when I came up with this. But you are absolutely right.
I use that
So
a lot in
seconds.
my discussions on time management. That's where that's what I obsess with. And you have this much amount of time in a day, and you have to spend every minute either productively or investing in something that you would realize the next day.
Yeah.
Whatever you don't use effectively is lost forever.
Yeah.
It's never coming back.
Absolutely.
So you have to pick and choose your battles.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. For people who reach a certain age and say that, we must slow down, or
Not at all. Yes, and I think you're a perfect example for that.
And I'm talking from and I am admitting I'm a late bloomer, so I've lived my life better in the last 10-12 years than I. And I say that age is between the years, not as in YEARS, so the year of your birth and the current year, but as in EARS. Here. It's between these years.
Yeah.
It's in the head. It's in your attitude to life.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
on your positivity. My father also used to say that definition of old age, that when dreams get replaced by memories, you become old.
Oh,
so
wow.
one should never forget to dream. One should never forget to aspire.
Look ahead.
One
Yes.
should never not have goals. Always have goals,
Excellent.
whatever your age.
Excellent. And I think we'll end it there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great being here.